The words hung in the air of Blackthorn Manor's great hall like a challenge to fate itself. "Will you be my father for one night?" Lily, 7 years old, with tangled blonde hair and a black eye that was turning purple, stood in the arched doorway, clutching a wrinkled invitation. Above her, ancient tapestries depicting centuries of vampire history loomed in the candlelight. Behind her, the full moon cast her small shadow long across the marble floor. 15 vampires froze mid-conversation and stared. Some had lived for centuries. Some had witnessed the fall of empires and the birth of nations. All of them had strict rules about human children. Stay away, don't engage, never involve yourself in their mortal affairs. And here stood a child who'd somehow breached their security and walked straight into their sanctum. Lord Dorian Blackthorn, the Coven's master, a vampire of 400 years with silver-streaked black hair and eyes like storm clouds, was the first to speak. His voice was careful, controlled, though shock rippled beneath it. "Child, how did you get inside?" "I walked," Lily said simply, her voice small but steady. "From Riverside Elementary. It's 4 miles." 4 miles? Celeste, the Coven's second-in-command, moved forward with preternatural grace. She was beautiful in the way all ancient vampires were. Flawless, pale skin, dark eyes that had seen too much. In the dark? Alone? That's dangerous. "Everything's dangerous," Lily said matter-of-factly. "But I had to come. I need help." "Where are your parents?" Dorian asked, though he could already see the answer written in her bruised face, her dirty clothes, the fear she was trying so hard to hide. "My mom works 2 jobs, the diner during the day and cleaning offices at night." Lily's lip trembled. "My real dad died when I was 4. I don't remember him much. And my stepdad," she touched her black eye carefully, "he doesn't count." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Every vampire present understood what that gesture meant. They might be predators, but they had their own code, their own lines they wouldn't cross. Hurting children was the darkest line of all. Marcus, one of the younger vampires, only a century old, with auburn hair and a face that still remembered being human, knelt down to Lily's level. "Who gave you that black eye, sweetheart?" "Derek, my stepdad." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "But that's not why I'm here. I mean, it's part of why, but—" She held up the invitation, and Marcus took it gently. It was handmade construction paper, decorated with glitter and careful child handwriting. "You are invited to the Father-Daughter Ball, Riverside Elementary School, Friday, November 15th, 7:00 p.m. Please bring your father or father figure. Refreshments will be served." "There's a dance at school on Friday," Lily explained, tears gathering in her eyes now. "Everyone's bringing their dads, but I can't bring Derek because the other kids already know he's mean. They make fun of me. They say nobody would want to be my dad, not even for pretend." Dorian stood slowly, his centuries of control warring with an emotion he hadn't felt in decades. Protective rage. "Who makes fun of you?" "Madison Pierce and her friends. They push me down every day. They took my lunch money. Yesterday they locked me in the bathroom during lunch." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "But if I had a dad show up, a really cool, really scary dad, maybe they'd leave me alone." "The child picked us because we looked dangerous." Sebastian, the Coven's enforcer, covered in tattoos that had been inked when he was still human 2 centuries ago, laughed darkly. "No," Lily said seriously. "I picked you because my mom told me about you. She cleans the law offices downtown. She saw your lawyer there, Mr. Chen. He was talking about how loyal vampires are. How if a vampire is your friend, they're your friend forever." She looked at Dorian with eyes too old for her face. "I need a forever friend." The great hall fell silent except for the crackle of the fireplace. These were creatures who'd lived through wars and plagues, who'd seen humanity at its best and worst, who'd learned to survive in a world that feared them by staying hidden, staying separate, never getting involved in human affairs beyond what was necessary. Every vampire in that room knew what Dorian should say. "No, we don't involve ourselves with human children. It's too dangerous, too complicated. Against our laws." But Dorian looked at that little girl, 7 years old and brave enough to walk 4 miles in the dark to ask monsters for help, and felt something shift in his ancient heart. "What time does the ball start?" he asked quietly. Lily's eyes went wide with hope. 7 o'clock Friday night. We'll be there. My lord, Celeste started, her tone warning. Dorian raised a hand. I'm aware of the laws, Celeste. I'm also aware that we have a choice. We can hide behind those laws, or we can help a child who needs us. He looked back at Lily. But first, I need you to tell me the truth about that black eye. Your stepfather did that? Lily nodded slowly. How often does he hurt you? Couple times a week, when Mom's at work. Lily's voice got smaller. He says if I tell anyone, he'll hurt her too. He says nobody would believe me anyway, because I'm just a kid, and he's an adult. The vampires exchanged glances that promised violence. These were beings who'd killed when necessary, who'd fought in shadows for centuries, but they had their own honor code. Harming innocents, especially children, violated everything they believed in. What's your stepfather's name? Sebastian asked, his voice deadly calm. Derek Vance. He works at the auto repair shop on 5th Street. Recognition flashed across several faces. I know him, Marcus said quietly. Came into my bar last month. Got drunk, started a fight. We had to throw him out. He's got a gambling problem. Owes money to some dangerous people. That's why Mom has to work so much, Lily added, to pay his debts. But it's never enough. He's always angry about money. Dorian crouched down so he was eye level with Lily. Listen to me carefully. We're going to help you, but not in the way you might think. We don't hurt people just because they hurt us. We're not monsters, even if the world thinks we are. Do you understand? Lily nodded, though she didn't fully understand yet. Good. Dorian stood. Celeste, I need you to make some calls. Find out everything about Derek Vance, his debts, his associates, his patterns. Marcus, talk to your police contacts. I want to know if there are any reports about him. Sebastian, check with social services. See if this family is in the system. And if the council hears we're involving ourselves with a human child, Celeste asked quietly, let them hear. I'll deal with the consequences. Dorian's expression was steel. 400 years I've followed their laws. 400 years I've stayed separate from human affairs. But I will not turn away a child who walked 4 miles in the dark to ask for help. He looked at Lily again. You're hungry, aren't you? Lily nodded. When's the last time you ate? Yesterday. Lunch at school. Marcus made a sound low in his throat. I'll raid the kitchen. We keep human food for our donors. While Marcus left, Dorian guided Lily to a chair by the fireplace. She looked impossibly small in the massive leather seat, her feet not touching the floor. Can I ask you something? Lily said quietly. Of course. Are you really going to eat me? Dorian blinked. Then, despite everything, he laughed. A sound that startled even the other vampires. No, child. We don't eat people. That's just stories humans tell to scare each other. But you're vampires. You drink blood. We do. But only from willing donors who are paid well and treated with respect. We have strict rules about consent. Dorian settled into the chair across from her. Real monsters are people like your stepfather. Humans who hurt those weaker than themselves. We're just different. Mom says different doesn't mean bad. Your mother is a wise woman. Marcus returned with a plate of food, sandwiches, fruit, cookies. Lily ate like she was starving, which she probably was. The vampires watched in silence, each of them remembering what it was like to be human, to need food, to be vulnerable. When Lily finished eating, her eyelids were drooping. The adrenaline that had carried her 4 miles was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. We need to get you home, Celeste said gently. Your mother will be worried. She doesn't know I left, Lily admitted. She thinks I'm sleeping. She won't be home until midnight. Then we'll have you back before then, Dorian said. But Lily, when you get home, I need you to do something for me. Can you be brave a little longer? Lily nodded. I need you to take pictures of your bruises, all of them. Use your mom's phone if you can. And I need you to keep a journal. Write down every time your stepfather hurts you or your mother. Dates, times, what happened. Can you do that? Why? Because we're going to make sure he never hurts you again. But we need evidence. We need proof for the human authorities. Dorian's expression softened. I promise you, Lily, after Friday night, things are going to change. Sebastian drove Lily home in one of the Coven's black cars, a sleek, modern vehicle that looked like it belonged to a CEO rather than creatures of the night. He watched until she was safely inside, then drove away. Back at Blackthorn Manor, the Coven gathered in the war room. a space they used for serious discussions, lined with maps and computers and file cabinets holding centuries of carefully gathered intelligence. "You realize what you've done," Celeste said quietly. "The Council will call this a violation of the separation laws, involving ourselves with human children, interfering in human family affairs. I know the laws, Celeste. I helped write half of them." Dorian paced the room, his movements controlled but agitated. "But laws exist to protect us from exposure, from danger. That child poses no threat. She's not going to expose us. She's asking for protection." "The Council won't see it that way," Marcus said. "They'll see it as setting a precedent. If we help one human child, how many more will come? Then let them come." Dorian turned to face his coven. "I'm 400 years old. I've spent centuries hiding in the shadows, pretending humanity's problems aren't our concern. I've watched children suffer and told myself it wasn't my place to intervene. I'm done with that. This could start a war with the Council," Sebastian warned. "Then we'll fight." Dorian's eyes flashed silver, a sign of his age and power. "But I will not abandon that child. Not now. Not ever." The coven members looked at each other. They were bound to Dorian by blood and loyalty, by centuries of trust. If he was willing to defy the Council, they would stand with him. "All right," Celeste said finally. "We do this, but we do it smart. We gather evidence. We work within human systems as much as possible, and we prepare for the consequences." Over the next 3 days, the coven worked with military precision. Marcus's police contacts confirmed Derek Vance had a history of domestic disturbance calls, though nothing had ever stuck. Neighbors had reported screaming, but no one had followed through with formal complaints. Sebastian's social services investigation revealed Lily's mother had called a hotline once, 2 years ago, but had been too afraid to proceed when Derek found out. And Celeste's financial investigation showed Derek was in debt to 3 different loan sharks, gambling away money faster than his wife could earn it. By Thursday night, they had a complete picture of Derek Vance, an abusive, gambling-addicted man who terrorized his family and owed money to dangerous people. "We have enough for the human authorities," Celeste said, reviewing their findings. "But that process takes time. Weeks, maybe months, and in the meantime, we go to that ball," Dorian finished. "We show Lily she has protectors. We show those bullies that hurting her has consequences. And we make it very clear to Derek Vance that his reign of terror is over." "The whole coven?" Marcus asked. "All 15 of us." Dorian smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. "I want to make an impression." Friday morning, Dorian received a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for believing me. Lily." He didn't know how she'd gotten his number, probably from the business card he'd given her. But the message made something in his ancient heart ache with protective fondness. "We'll see you tonight," he texted back. "Be brave a little longer." As the sun set Friday evening, the vampires of Blackthorn Coven prepared for battle. Not the kind fought with weapons, but the kind fought with presence, with power, with the promise of protection. They dressed in their finest. Dorian in a tailored black suit that cost more than most cars, Celeste in a gown that looked like it belonged at a royal ball, the others in various styles that ranged from elegant to intimidating. "Ready?" Dorian asked as they gathered in the mansion's entry hall. 15 vampires, ancient, powerful, and united, nodded as one. "Then let's show Riverside Elementary what happens when you hurt one of ours." They moved into the night, 5 black cars forming a convoy toward the school, where a little girl waited, hoping that monsters might save her from the real evil in her life. Thursday afternoon, the day before the father-daughter ball, Dorian did something he hadn't done in decades. He went shopping during daylight hours. Vampires could tolerate sunlight, contrary to human myths. It weakened them, made their movements slower, their senses duller, but it didn't kill them. Most preferred to avoid it, simply because darkness was more comfortable. But Lily needed a dress for the ball, and Dorian wasn't going to let something as inconvenient as the sun stop him from helping her. He picked Lily up from school at 3 p.m., driving the least intimidating car the coven owned, a dark blue sedan that could pass for a normal father's vehicle. Lily's eyes went wide when she saw him waiting at the curb. "You came," she breathed, climbing into the passenger seat. "I promised, didn't I?" Dorian glanced at her through his sunglasses, necessary to hide the slight glow his eyes took on in direct sunlight. How was school today? Madison pushed me at lunch. Said I was lying about having a dad come to the ball. Lily's voice was small. She said nobody would believe a loser like me could have anyone show up. Dorian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Well, Madison is in for quite a surprise tomorrow night. But first, we need to get you a dress. Something that makes you feel like a princess. I can't afford a princess dress. Mom doesn't have extra money. That's why I'm buying it. Consider it a gift from your, what should we call this? Your honorary father? Lily was quiet for a moment. Can I call you Dad? Just for tomorrow? Something in Dorian's chest, something he'd thought had gone cold centuries ago, stirred painfully. You can call me Dad whenever you want, Lily. They went to Rosewood's, the nicest dress shop in town. The sales associate, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, looked surprised when Dorian and Lily entered. Vampires were known in certain circles, tolerated as long as they stayed separate from human affairs. Seeing one with a human child was unusual. We need a dress for the father-daughter ball, Dorian said smoothly. Something age-appropriate but special. Price is no concern. Patricia's professional instincts overrode her surprise. Of course. What color were you thinking? What's your favorite color, Lily? Dorian asked. Purple. Like twilight. Purple it is. For the next hour, Lily tried on dresses while Dorian sat in a chair that was far too small for his frame, offering opinions with surprising thoughtfulness. Too much lace on that one. The cut wasn't quite right on another. That shade of purple clashed with her skin tone. Finally, Lily emerged in a dress that made even the jaded sales associate gasp. Deep purple silk with a flowing skirt, delicate silver embroidery that caught the light, and a design that was elegant without being too mature. That's the one, Dorian said immediately. Lily looked at herself in the mirror, her eyes filling with tears. I look pretty. You look beautiful, Dorian corrected. You are beautiful, Lily. Don't let anyone ever tell you different. As Patricia rang up the dress, along with shoes, a silver hair clip, and a small purse Dorian had insisted on, she spoke quietly. You're Lord Blackthorn, aren't you? The vampire from Blackthorn Manor? I am. That girl, she's not your blood child. No, Dorian's voice held a warning edge. But she's under my protection. Is that a problem? Patricia looked at Lily, who was still admiring herself in the mirror, then back at Dorian. No problem. Just, the Vampire Council has rules about involving yourselves with human children. People talk. Let them talk. Dorian handed her a credit card. Sometimes the old rules need to be broken. That evening, back at Blackthorn Manor, the coven gathered to brief Lily on what to expect. Tomorrow night, all 15 of us will arrive at your school, Celeste explained, her tone gentle. We'll look intimidating. That's intentional. We want to make sure those bullies think twice about ever bothering you again. But we need you to understand something important, Marcus added. We're not human. Some of the other parents might be afraid of us. Some might even be hostile. Can you handle that? Lily nodded seriously. I don't care if they're scared. They should be scared. They let Madison hurt me and didn't do anything about it. Fair point, Sebastian muttered. Dorian knelt beside Lily's chair. I also need to prepare you for something. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a conversation with your stepfather. Lily's face went pale. He'll be so angry. He won't touch you. I promise you that. Dorian's voice was absolute. But we need to make him understand that hurting you is no longer an option, that there are consequences. Can you trust me to handle that? Will you hurt him? Not unless he forces us to. We don't want to become what we're fighting against. Dorian touched her hand gently, his skin cool but not unpleasantly so. But we will make sure he's afraid. Very afraid. Is that okay? Lily thought about it for a long moment. Then, he should be afraid. He makes me afraid all the time. Maybe it's his turn. The vampires exchanged glances that held a mixture of approval and sadness. No 7-year-old should have to think that way. Friday evening arrived. Lily stood outside Riverside Elementary at 6:45 p.m., wearing her purple dress and clutching a small purse that Celeste had filled with emergency items, phone numbers, a panic button that would alert the coven, and a silver cross blessed by a priest who was friendly to vampires. Other children started arriving with their fathers. Madison Pierce showed up with her dad, a tall man in an expensive suit who worked as a corporate lawyer. She saw Lily standing alone and smirked. "Where's your dad, loser?" Madison called out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, wait, I forgot. You don't have one. You're all alone, just like always." Her friends laughed on cue. Other parents watched but said nothing, uncomfortable with the cruelty but unwilling to intervene. Lily felt tears burning in her eyes. What if they didn't come? What if it had all been some cruel joke? Then she heard it, the rumble of engines, not motorcycles, something deeper, more powerful. 5 black luxury cars turned the corner in perfect formation, their tinted windows hiding the occupants. Parents stopped talking. Teachers came to the school entrance. Principal Foster stepped outside, his expression shifting from curious to alarmed. The cars pulled into the parking lot with military precision and stopped in a V formation. All 5 doors opened simultaneously, and 15 vampires emerged. They ranged from Dorian, dressed in a black suit that probably cost $5,000, to Sebastian, whose tattooed arms were visible even through his formal shirt. Celeste wore a gown that looked like it belonged in a vampire court, elegant and slightly terrifying. The others were similarly dressed, formal, expensive, and unmistakably dangerous. Dorian walked straight to Lily, his movements graceful despite the setting sun still visible on the horizon. "Sorry we're late, sweetheart. Traffic was difficult." Lily's face broke into the biggest smile anyone at that school had ever seen. She ran to him, and Dorian caught her easily, lifting her up in a hug that looked natural, paternal. Madison Pierce's jaw dropped. Her father took an involuntary step back. Principal Foster approached, his professional smile somewhat strained. "Mr. Blackthorne, I wasn't expecting quite so many guests. My daughter said it was a special event," Dorian replied smoothly, setting Lily down but keeping his hand on her shoulder. "I thought I'd bring the family. We're a close-knit group." "I can see that." Foster's eyes darted over the 15 vampires, all of whom stood with that supernatural stillness that marked them as other. "I'll need to check if we have space." "We called ahead and made a generous donation to the school's arts program," Celeste interjected, her smile showing just a hint of fang. "I believe you'll find everything has been arranged." It had been. A $20,000 donation tended to smooth over logistical concerns. The gymnasium had been decorated with balloons and streamers, tables set up around a makeshift dance floor. A DJ was setting up equipment, and refreshment tables held punch and cookies. When the vampires entered, all 15 of them, filling the space with their presence, conversations died. Other fathers instinctively positioned themselves between the vampires and their daughters. Mothers clutched their children closer. Only Lily walked proudly beside Dorian, her small hand in his much larger one, her chin held high for the first time in months. "I told you," she said quietly, just for him. "I told you they'd be scared. Being feared isn't always good," Dorian murmured back, "but sometimes it's necessary." The evening began with a welcome speech from Principal Foster, who stumbled over his words more than usual, very aware of the vampires standing at the back of the gymnasium like a personal army. Then came the father-daughter dance. A slow song played, and fathers led their daughters onto the dance floor. Dorian offered his hand to Lily with exaggerated courtliness. "May I have this dance?" Lily giggled, the first genuine laugh anyone had heard from her in weeks, and let him lead her to the floor. They danced, Dorian careful to move at human speed, to make Lily feel comfortable. Around them, other fathers danced with their daughters, but everyone was watching the vampire and the little girl. "You know how to dance really well," Lily said. "I've had a lot of practice. 400 years of it." 400? That's so old. "Tell me about it." Dorian smiled. "But it means I've learned a few things, like how to spot people who need help, and how to spot people who hurt others because they're hurting inside." He glanced toward Madison Pierce, who was dancing with her father. The man's grip on his daughter's arm was too tight. Madison's smile was forced, her posture tense. Dorian had seen it before. The signs of abuse, hidden beneath expensive clothes and social respectability. When the dance ended, Dorian guided Lily to where the other vampires stood. "Stay with Celeste for a moment, sweetheart. I need to speak with someone." He approached Madison's father, Richard Pierce, with Sebastian flanking him. The other vampires casually formed a perimeter, blocking escape routes without being obvious about it. "Mr. Pierce, could we speak privately for a moment?" Richard's expression was dismissive, tinged with arrogance. "I'm busy. Your daughter would benefit from this conversation." Something in Dorian's voice made the human stop. "Now, please." They moved to a quiet corner of the gymnasium. Sebastian positioned himself where he could watch both the conversation and the crowd. "I don't appreciate being cornered by vampires," Richard said, trying to sound brave. "This is a school event. There are rules." "Rules?" Dorian interrupted quietly. "Like not bruising your daughter's arms so badly she has to wear long sleeves in summer?" Richard went pale. "I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie to me. I've lived 400 years. I can smell fear, smell guilt, smell violence on people like cologne." Dorian stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Richard could hear. "Your daughter is a bully because someone is bullying her. And I can guess who. My family is none of your business. You made it my business when your daughter started tormenting a child under my protection." Dorian's eyes flashed silver, a reminder of what he was. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get help. Therapy, anger management, whatever it takes. Or I'm going to make sure social services gets an anonymous tip with very detailed information about what happens in your house. You wouldn't dare. Try me." Dorian smiled, and it wasn't kind. "I've toppled governments, Mr. Pierce. Ruining one abusive father's reputation would barely register on my conscience." Richard's hands were shaking now. "And if I agree to get help, then your daughter stops bullying Lily. You stop hurting your daughter, and we all move forward." Dorian's expression softened slightly. "I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to break a cycle. Your daughter doesn't have to become what you've made her, but that requires you to change." The conversation lasted another 10 minutes. By the end, Richard Pierce looked shaken but thoughtful. He left that gymnasium with a business card for a therapist who specialized in anger management and a promise that if he didn't follow through, consequences would follow. "Think he'll actually do it?" Sebastian asked as they watched Richard rejoin his daughter. "We'll follow up. Make sure." Dorian looked toward Lily, who was eating cookies with Celeste and laughing at something Marcus had said. Breaking cycles takes time, but it starts with someone caring enough to intervene. The real confrontation came later that evening. Derek Vance showed up an hour into the ball, drunk and belligerent. He'd heard about the vampires at his stepdaughter's school and didn't like being embarrassed. "Where is she?" he demanded, pushing past the parent volunteers at the entrance. "Where's that little brat?" Principal Foster tried to intercept him. "Mr. Vance, you can't be here in this condition." Derek shoved him aside. "I'll go wherever I damn well please. She's my kid." "No." Dorian's voice cut across the gymnasium like a blade. "She's not." Every vampire in the room moved, forming a wall between Derek and Lily. The movement was so fast, so coordinated, that several parents gasped. Derek stopped, swaying slightly, his alcohol-clouded brain trying to process what he was seeing. "Who the hell are you? I'm the one who's going to give you a choice." Dorian walked forward slowly, each step measured and threatening. "You can leave now, quietly, and we can have a civilized conversation tomorrow about how your relationship with Lily and her mother ends. Or you can make a scene, and I'll make sure every person in this room knows exactly what kind of man you are." "You don't know anything about me. I know you hit a 7-year-old child." Dorian's voice dropped to a deadly whisper that somehow carried through the silent gymnasium. "I know you use your fists to compensate for your inadequacies. I know you gamble away money your wife earns while she works herself to exhaustion. Should I continue?" Derek's face flushed red. "You can't prove—" "I don't need to prove anything. I just need to make a phone call." Sebastian held up a phone. "To Big Tommy. Remember him? The loan shark you owe $15,000 to? I'm sure he'd love to know where to find you." All color drained from Derek's face. "Here's what's going to happen," Dorian continued. "You're going to leave, tonight. You're going to pack your things and find somewhere else to live. You're going to sign whatever divorce papers Lily's mother's lawyer sends you. And you're never going to contact that family again. And if I don't?" The 15 vampires smiled. It was not a reassuring sight. "Then we'll have a different conversation," Dorian said softly. "One you won't enjoy. We're vampires, Mr. Vance. We've been alive for centuries. We know how to make people disappear without leaving a trace. The question is, are you stupid enough to test whether that's a bluff? Derek looked at the vampires, at their unified stance, their predatory grace, their absolute certainty. Then he looked at Lily, standing safe behind them, no longer afraid. He turned and stumbled out of the gymnasium. In the parking lot, away from witnesses, Sebastian and Marcus escorted him to his car. What was said there would never be repeated, but Derek Vance drove away that night and never came back to that house. Inside the gymnasium, Lily ran to Dorian and hugged him fiercely. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Dorian knelt down, holding her carefully. "You never have to thank me for protecting you. That's what fathers do. Even vampire fathers? Especially vampire fathers. We're very protective of our own." The rest of the evening passed peacefully. The vampires mingled with the human parents. Some conversations were awkward, but others were surprisingly normal. Several parents thanked them quietly for dealing with Derek, for standing up to a bully. Principal Foster gave a closing speech, stumbling over his words as he tried to thank everyone for coming. But it was Lily who surprised everyone. She walked to the microphone, standing on a box so she could reach it, her purple dress shimmering under the gymnasium lights. "I want to say something," she announced, her small voice carrying through the sound system. The room fell silent. 3 days ago, I walked 4 miles in the dark to ask strangers for help. I was scared. I was alone. And I didn't know if anyone would care about a kid like me. She looked at the vampires standing together at the back. But they cared. They came. They protected me. They showed me that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up when you're scared. Several parents were wiping their eyes. Even some of the vampires looked uncomfortable with the emotion in the room. "So thank you, Dad," Lily said, looking directly at Dorian, "for being my dad tonight, for being my dad forever." Dorian didn't trust himself to speak. He simply opened his arms, and Lily ran to him, and he held her while the gymnasium erupted in applause. Later that night, as the vampires prepared to leave, Madison Pierce approached Lily shyly. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for being mean, for pushing you and saying mean things." Lily looked at her for a long moment. "Why were you so mean?" "Because," Madison's eyes filled with tears, "because my dad is mean to me, and it made me want to be mean too. But that was wrong." "Yeah, it was." Lily's voice was firm but not cruel. "But maybe we can both do better now." Madison nodded. "Maybe." As they drove back to Blackthorn Manor, Lily fell asleep in the car, her head resting against Dorian's shoulder. Celeste drove while Dorian held the sleeping child, his ancient face soft with an emotion he'd thought lost to time. "The council is going to hear about this," Celeste said quietly. "Let them. They'll say you broke the separation laws, that you've set a dangerous precedent. I broke laws that needed breaking." Dorian looked down at Lily. "And I'd do it again. For her. For any child who needs help." Celeste smiled slightly. "You know, 400 years I've known you, and I've never seen you look quite so paternal." "Neither have I," Dorian admitted. "But it feels right, like something I didn't know I was missing." They pulled up to Lily's house, a small, run-down place that looked even worse next to the vampires' luxury vehicles. Dorian carried her inside, finding her mother waiting anxiously. The woman gasped when she saw them. You're really vampires." "We are." Dorian laid Lily gently on the couch. "Your daughter is extraordinarily brave. She walked 4 miles to ask for our help. We couldn't refuse." "Derek is gone," Lily's mother, Sarah, whispered. "He left, took all his things. I don't know what you said to him, but..." She started crying. "Thank you, God, thank you." "You'll never see him again," Celeste promised. "We'll make sure of it. And we've arranged for some help. A new job for you, better pay, through one of our business contacts. The offer will come Monday." Sarah couldn't speak, could only cry and nod. As the vampires left, Dorian looked back once at the small house where a little girl and her mother were finally safe. "We did good tonight," Sebastian said. "We did," Dorian agreed. "And we're not done yet." For 3 days, peace held. Lily went to school without being bullied. Sarah started her new job, assistant manager at a boutique owned by one of the Coven's human allies, with triple her previous salary and actual benefits. Derek Vance stayed away. But peace, Dorian had learned in 400 years, was always temporary. The attack came on Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m. Dorian was in his study at Blackthorn Manor, reviewing contracts for one of the Coven's legitimate businesses, when his phone buzzed with an alert. The panic button they'd given Lily had been activated. He was out the door before the second buzz, moving with supernatural speed. Sebastian, Marcus, and Celeste were already in the garage. "The tracker shows her home address," Celeste said, her face grim. "But the panic button has been pressed 3 times in succession. That's the code for immediate danger." They took 2 cars, driving through the night streets fast enough to be dangerous. Dorian's hands were clenched on the steering wheel, his ancient control fracturing with every second that passed. She's a child, just a child. If anything happens to her. They pulled up to the small house at 11:54 p.m. The front door was hanging open, and they could hear shouting inside. Derek's voice, slurred with alcohol and rage. "You think you can humiliate me? Make me look like a fool in front of the whole town?" Sarah's voice, terrified. "Derek, please, just leave. You're not supposed to be here. This is my house. You're my wife. That brat is my responsibility." "No!" Lily's scream cut through the night. "You're not my dad. You'll never be my dad." The sound of a hand striking flesh. Dorian didn't remember crossing the yard. One moment he was at the car, the next he was through the front door, his eyes gone completely silver with fury. The scene before him would be burned into his memory forever. Derek standing over Lily, his hand raised for another strike. Sarah on the floor, her lip bleeding. Lily's face already showing the red mark of where he'd hit her. "Get away from her," Dorian said, and his voice carried 4 centuries of controlled violence. Derek spun, his drunken brain taking a moment to process the vampire standing in his doorway. This is your fault. You turned my own family against me. I said," Dorian's fangs extended, his true nature no longer hidden, "Get away from her." Derek stumbled backward, finally understanding the danger he was in. "You can't hurt me. There are laws, vampire laws. You touch a human, the council, Dorian interrupted, moving forward with predatory grace, "can go to hell. You just hit a 7-year-old child in front of witnesses. Any law that says I can't stop you is a law that deserves to be broken." Sebastian, Marcus, and Celeste entered behind him, fanning out to block any escape route. The 4 vampires filled the small living room with their presence, their power, their barely restrained fury. "We gave you a chance," Sebastian said quietly. "We told you to leave, to stay away. You made your choice." Derek's bravado was crumbling fast, alcohol courage evaporating in the face of actual danger. "I just wanted to talk. To explain." "You wanted to hurt them." Marcus's voice was ice. "Again, because that's all men like you know how to do." Dorian knelt beside Lily, his movements careful despite his rage. "Are you hurt, sweetheart?" Lily was crying but shook her head. "He only hit me once. I pressed the button like you told me." "You did exactly right." Dorian's cool hand touched her cheek gently, checking the damage. The skin was red but not broken. It would bruise by morning. "Can you and your mother go to the kitchen with Celeste? We need to have a conversation with Derek." "Are you going to kill him?" Lily asked, her voice small. "No, but we're going to make sure he never hurts you again. I promise." Celeste guided Sarah and Lily out of the room. Once they were gone, the 3 remaining vampires turned their full attention to Derek Vance. "Here's what you need to understand," Dorian said, circling Derek like a wolf circling prey. "You're not dealing with human authorities who need evidence and warrants and court proceedings. You're dealing with creatures who've existed for centuries, who've seen every kind of evil humanity can produce, and who have very few restrictions on how we handle threats. You can't kill me," Derek said, but his voice shook. "The Vampire Council has laws against killing humans without cause." "Oh, we have cause." Sebastian pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. "We have documented evidence of domestic abuse. We have testimony from Lily's teachers. We have medical records showing repeated injuries. We have security footage from Friday night showing you assaulting a school principal. And we have 4 vampires who witnessed you hitting a child tonight." He showed Derek the phone. The man's face went pale as he saw the evidence they'd compiled. Photos of Lily's bruises, Sarah's medical records, statements from neighbors who'd heard screaming. If we wanted you dead, Sebastian continued calmly, we could justify it to the council. Self-defense of a minor, protection of the innocent. Ancient law gives us broad authority in cases involving child abuse. But we're not going to kill you, Marcus added. Death is too easy, too quick. We're going to do something worse. Derek's eyes widened with fear. What? We're going to make you disappear, Dorian said. Not literally. You'll still be alive. But Derek Vance, the identity, the credit, the social connections will cease to exist. He nodded to Sebastian, who began listing with clinical precision. We've already filed for divorce on Sarah's behalf. Your signature on the papers was forged. Don't look shocked. We have lawyers who specialize in this sort of thing. The restraining order was approved this afternoon. Your bank accounts have been frozen due to suspicious activity. But your gambling debts have been purchased by a collection agency we own. And your employer received an anonymous tip about you stealing from the register. Derek's face cycled through emotions. Shock, fear, rage, desperation. You can't do this. This is illegal. So is domestic violence, Marcus said flatly. But you didn't let that stop you. Here's what happens next, Dorian continued, his voice carrying absolute authority. You're going to leave this house. Tonight. You're going to find somewhere else to live. We don't care where, as long as it's far from here. You're going to sign every document our lawyers send you, and you're never going to contact Sarah or Lily again. Not by phone, not by letter, not through intermediaries. Never. And if I refuse? The three vampires smiled, showing their fangs. Then we have a conversation with Big Tommy about your $15,000 gambling debt, Sebastian said. We'll let him know you've been bragging about how you're going to skip town without paying. Big Tommy doesn't like that. Or, Marcus added, we could have a conversation with the IRS about the under-the-table payments you've been taking at the auto shop. Tax evasion is a federal crime. Or, Dorian finished, we could simply let word spread through the supernatural community that you're fair game. There are younger vampires, less controlled than us, who would love an excuse to hunt someone who hurts children. We've been protecting you from them by handling this ourselves. Stop cooperating, and we'll step aside. Derek was shaking now, his alcohol-fueled bravado completely gone. I'll leave. I'll sign whatever. Just don't hurt me. We're not going to hurt you, Dorian said. But understand this, we'll be watching, always. If you ever come near this family again, if you ever even think about contacting them, we'll know. And next time, we won't be so merciful. He leaned in close, his silver eyes boring into Derek's. I've lived for 400 years. I've toppled kingdoms and destroyed men far more powerful than you. Staying away from one little girl and her mother is the easiest thing you'll ever do, because the alternative is facing my wrath, and trust me, you don't want that. Derek nodded frantically. I'll go. I'll leave. Tonight, I swear. Marcus is going to escort you, Dorian said. You have 30 minutes to pack essential items. Everything else stays. This is Sarah's house now. The mortgage has been paid off by an anonymous donor. Marcus will watch you pack, watch you leave, and make absolutely certain you understand the consequences of returning. Marcus grabbed Derek by the arm, not hard enough to bruise, but firm enough to convey strength, and guided him toward the bedroom. Sebastian and Dorian stood in the living room, listening to Derek scramble to pack his belongings. After a moment, Sebastian spoke quietly. The council is going to hear about this. We just threatened a human, used compulsion, interfered extensively in mortal affairs. That's 3 major violations of the separation laws. I know. Dorian's expression was calm. Let them come. You're willing to face execution for this child? I'm willing to face anything for her. Dorian looked toward the kitchen, where Celeste was comforting Lily and Sarah. 400 years, Sebastian. 400 years of following rules that kept us safe but made us cowards. Rules that said we should watch children suffer and do nothing because it wasn't our concern. I'm done with those rules. Sebastian studied his lord for a long moment. You know we'll stand with you. All of us. If the council comes, they'll have to go through the entire coven. I know, and I'll never be able to repay that loyalty. You already have. You taught us that being a monster isn't about what you are. It's about what you choose to do. Sebastian smiled slightly. Tonight, We chose right. 30 minutes later, Marcus escorted Derek out of the house. The man carried a single duffel bag, his face pale and terrified. He climbed into his beat-up car without looking back and drove away into the night. They would later learn he drove 3 states over, found a job at another auto shop under a fake name, and never gambled again. Fear had accomplished what years of Sarah's pleading never could. It had changed him. Not into a good man, perhaps, but at least into a harmless one. Inside the house, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, holding Lily close, both of them crying. Not from fear anymore, but from relief. "He's really gone?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse. "Really gone," Dorian confirmed. "And if he ever tries to come back, he knows what will happen." Sarah looked at the 4 vampires standing in her small kitchen, creatures of nightmare, predators from legend, and started crying harder. "Thank you. God, thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "There's no debt," Celeste said gently. "We don't help people to be repaid. We help because it's right. But I'm nobody, just a waitress." "Why would you care about someone like me?" "Because your daughter was brave enough to ask for help," Dorian said. "And because we remember what it's like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy. We have power now, and we choose to use it to protect people who need protection." Lily pulled away from her mother and walked to Dorian. "Can I hug you?" "Of course, sweetheart." She wrapped her small arms around him, and Dorian held her carefully, aware of his supernatural strength, aware that he could hurt her so easily if he wasn't careful. But he'd been controlling his strength for 4 centuries. He knew how to be gentle. "You're really my dad now, right?" Lily asked against his chest. "Not just for one night?" Dorian looked at Sarah, asking silent permission. She nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "If you'll have me," Dorian said. "Then yes, I'm your dad, for as long as you want me." "Forever," Lily said firmly. "I want you forever." The formal adoption paperwork was complicated. Vampires didn't typically adopt human children. The separation laws explicitly discouraged forming family bonds with mortals. It led to complications when the human aged and died while the vampire remained unchanged. It risked exposure. It violated centuries of carefully maintained distance. But Dorian didn't care about any of that. He hired the best lawyers money could buy, including several who specialized in supernatural law. They found loopholes, precedents, old laws that superseded newer ones. It took 6 weeks and considerable expense, but the paperwork was filed. Dorian Blackthorn was requesting to become Lily's legal guardian, with full parental rights. The response from the Vampire Council came faster than expected. A formal summons arrived at Blackthorn Manor, written on parchment in the old style, sealed with the Council's mark. Lord Dorian Blackthorn is hereby summoned to answer charges of violating the separation laws. He is accused of interfering in human affairs, threatening a human civilian, and attempting to form a family bond with a mortal child. He will appear before the council on the next full moon to answer these charges. The punishment for violating the separation laws could range from censure to exile to execution, depending on severity. The coven gathered in the war room to discuss strategy. "We could fight them," Sebastian said. "Blackthorn Coven is one of the oldest and strongest in North America. If it comes to war—" "No war," Dorian said firmly. "I won't put you all at risk because I broke their rules." "You broke the rules for a good reason," Marcus argued. "Any reasonable vampire would see that." "The council isn't always reasonable," Celeste said quietly. "They're old, set in their ways. They see any deviation from tradition as dangerous." Dorian looked at the summons, at the formal language that barely concealed the threat beneath. Then he looked at his coven, 15 vampires who'd stood with him for decades, some for centuries, who'd risked themselves to help a child they barely knew. "I'll go before the council," he said. "I'll answer their charges. I'll accept whatever punishment they decree, but I won't apologize. What we did was right, and I'd do it again." "You might die for this," Sebastian said bluntly. "Then I die." Dorian's voice was calm, certain. "But Lily will be safe. Sarah will be safe. Derek will never touch them again. That's worth my life." "You're not going alone," Celeste said. The other vampires nodded in agreement. "We all broke the laws. We all interfered. If you face the council, we face them together. Dorian felt something swell in his chest, gratitude, love, pride in these creatures who'd chosen to follow him, not out of fear, but out of loyalty. Together then, he said, we face them together. But before they could appear before the council, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at Blackthorn Manor, addressed to the vampires who helped my daughter. It was from Sarah, written in careful handwriting on simple notebook paper. Inside was a petition, signed by over 300 people from the town. Parents who'd been at the father-daughter ball, teachers from Riverside Elementary, business owners who'd heard what happened, even Mayor Peterson, who'd been skeptical of vampires for years. The petition read, "We, the undersigned citizens of Riverside, formally request that the Vampire Council recognize the actions of Lord Dorian Blackthorn and his coven as heroic rather than criminal. They intervened to protect a child from abuse when human systems had failed. They showed restraint, compassion, and respect for human life. They are not the monsters your laws assume all vampires to be. They are protectors, and we want them to know they have our support." 300 signatures. 300 humans willing to publicly support vampires, to argue for them before a supernatural council most didn't even know existed. Dorian read the letter 3 times, his ancient eyes stinging with emotion he hadn't felt in decades. "They're standing up for us," Marcus said, wonder in his voice. "Humans are standing up for vampires. Because we stood up for one of them first," Celeste replied. "Because we proved we could be trusted." When the full moon arrived, and it was time to face the council, Dorian went with his head held high, surrounded by his coven, carrying a letter signed by 300 humans who believed monsters could be heroes. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Helping Lily had been worth it. Breaking the old laws had been worth it. And if given the choice again, he wouldn't change a single thing. The council chambers existed in a place between worlds, a Gothic cathedral hidden beneath the streets of New York City, accessible only to those with supernatural blood. 7 vampires sat in judgment, each ancient beyond measure, each representing a different region of North America. At the center sat Counselor Mordecai, nearly 1,000 years old, with eyes like chips of black ice and a face carved from centuries of absolute authority. Dorian stood before them, his coven arrayed behind him in silent support. 15 vampires facing 7, but the power imbalance was absolute. The council's authority had been established over millennia. To defy them was to invite destruction. "Lord Dorian Blackthorn," Mordecai's voice echoed through the chamber, ancient and cold. "You stand accused of 3 violations of the separation laws. First, interfering extensively in human domestic affairs. Second, threatening and coercing a human civilian. Third, attempting to form a family bond with a mortal child, thereby risking exposure of our kind. How do you answer these charges?" "Guilty," Dorian said clearly, "on all counts." A ripple of shock went through the assembled vampires, other lords and ladies who'd come to witness the hearing. Guilty pleas were rare. Most vampires tried to argue technicalities to minimize their violations. "You do not seek to defend yourself?" Counselor Vivian, not to be confused with Dorian's coven member of the same name, asked, her French accent still thick after 6 centuries. "I don't deny what I did. A 7-year-old child walked 4 miles alone in the dark to ask for my help. She was being abused by her stepfather. She was being bullied at school. Human authorities had failed her repeatedly. So, yes, I interfered. I threatened her abuser. I claimed her as my daughter. And I'd do it again without hesitation. The separation laws exist for a reason," Counselor Zhang said, his ancient Chinese carrying weight of dynasties witnessed and survived. "They protect us from exposure, from the chaos of involving ourselves in endless human conflicts. You've risked that protection for one child." "I have," Dorian agreed. "And I'd risk it for any child in similar circumstances. The separation laws were written to protect us, not to make us cowards. Not to make us turn away when children suffer." "You dare call this council cowards?" Mordecai's voice dropped dangerously low. "I call the laws incomplete. They tell us what we cannot do, but they don't tell us what we should do, where our responsibility lies." Dorian stepped forward, his 400 years of authority evident in his bearing. I am not the first vampire to help a human in need. I am simply the first to be honest about it. That caused another ripple of reaction. Because he was right. Many older vampires had bent or broken the separation laws over the centuries. They'd just been discreet about it. The child's safety could have been addressed through human channels, Councillor Rothstein argued, his German accent clipped with disapproval. You could have made anonymous reports to their authorities. We did. Multiple reports over multiple years. Nothing was done. Sebastian stepped forward, standing beside his lord. Human systems are overwhelmed, underfunded, and slow. By the time they acted, Lily might have been seriously injured or killed. We had the power to help immediately. We chose to use it. And in doing so, you've set a precedent. Councillor Chen, the youngest of the council at a mere 400 years, said sharply. If vampires can interfere in human family matters for one child, why not for all children? Why not involve ourselves in every human tragedy? Where does it end? It ends with judgment, Celeste said, joining Dorian and Sebastian. With choosing carefully when intervention is necessary, with using our power responsibly rather than hiding behind laws that let us ignore suffering. You three speak, Mordecai observed. What of the rest of your coven? Do they also defy this council? As one, the remaining 12 vampires of Blackthorn Coven stepped forward. We do, Marcus said firmly. We stand with our lord, another added. We helped that child willingly, a third confirmed. Mordecai's expression was unreadable. Then you all face judgment. 15 vampires, all guilty of violating ancient law. The penalty could be exile or execution. The separation laws are not optional. Then execute us, Dorian said calmly. But know this, we have the support of over 300 humans who witnessed what we did, who signed a petition defending our actions, who called us heroes instead of monsters. He produced the letter Sarah had sent, along with pages of signatures. A council attendant took them, carrying them to Mordecai. The ancient vampire read in silence, his expression shifting subtly. The other councillors leaned in to read over his shoulder. Humans, Councillor Vivian breathed. 300 of them, willing to publicly support vampires, putting their names on record. That hasn't happened in my lifetime, Zhang admitted, and he was over 800 years old. They're supporting us because we proved we're not the monsters they feared, Dorian said. Because we used our power to protect instead of harm. Because we showed them that vampires can be trusted. Isn't that worth more than maintaining laws that keep us isolated and feared? It's also dangerous, Mordecai countered. Humans who see us as protectors will expect more protection, will come to us with every problem, will draw us deeper into their world until we can't hide anymore. Maybe we shouldn't hide anymore. The words came from an unexpected source. Marcus, the youngest vampire in Blackthorn Coven. I was turned 100 years ago. I still remember being human. I remember feeling helpless, vulnerable, afraid. Now I have power, and I can use it to help people who feel the way I once did. Why is that wrong? Before the council could respond, the chamber doors opened. A human woman entered, middle-aged, professional, carrying herself with authority despite the room full of vampires. Forgive the interruption, she said. I'm Judge Patricia Morrison, Family Court. I was asked to provide testimony regarding the Vance case. We did not summon human witnesses, Mordecai said, though he gestured for her to approach. Lord Blackthorn's lawyers informed me of this hearing. I came of my own accord. Judge Morrison produced a file. I've presided over family court for 20 years. I've seen countless cases of child abuse. Most go unreported until it's too late. The Vance case is different. She opened the file, showing documentation. Thanks to evidence provided by Blackthorn Coven, photographs, witness statements, medical records, we were able to remove Lily from an abusive situation immediately. The stepfather is gone. The mother has resources to rebuild her life, and the child is safe. This outcome typically takes months or years of legal battles. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all because children die before we can intervene. Your point? Councillor Chen asked. My point is that Lord Blackthorn did what our system couldn't. He didn't replace human authority. He supplemented it. He provided evidence, protection, and resources that allowed our legal system to work properly. Judge Morrison looked at Dorian with obvious respect. If more people, human or vampire, had his sense of responsibility, my courtroom would be far less crowded. The testimony hung in the air. A human judge, an officer of mortal law, defending a vampire's violation of supernatural law. "We appreciate your testimony," Mordecai said finally. "But our laws exist independent of human opinion." "Do they?" Dorian challenged. "The separation laws were written centuries ago, when humans hunted us with torches and stakes, when exposure meant death. The world has changed. Maybe our laws should change with it. Laws that change with every generation are not laws. They're suggestions." Mordecai's tone was sharp. "However," he paused, looking at the assembled vampires, at the human judge, at the petition signed by 300 mortals. "Your actions, while illegal, were not without merit, and the consequences of punishing you would likely cause more harm than good." He stood, and the other counselors stood with him. "Dorian Blackthorn, you have violated the separation laws. For this, you are formally censured. Your adoption of the human child Lily is approved under special dispensation, but you will be held personally responsible for any exposure this causes. Should the child reveal our nature, should your relationship with her compromise our secrecy, you will face immediate execution. Do you accept these terms?" "I do," Dorian said without hesitation. "Furthermore, we are establishing a new precedent. Vampires may intervene in cases of child abuse, but only under strict protocols. Evidence must be gathered. Human authorities must be notified. Violence against humans is prohibited except in immediate defense of life. Lord Blackthorn, you will work with this council to develop these protocols." Dorian's expression shifted to surprise. "You're legitimizing intervention?" "We're acknowledging that complete separation is no longer practical. The world has changed, as you noted. We must change with it, or risk becoming irrelevant." Mordecai's smile was thin. "You forced our hand, Lord Blackthorn. Let's hope you don't regret it." The hearing was over. Dorian and his coven walked out of the council chambers with their lives, their freedom, and official permission to continue helping Lily. "That went better than expected," Sebastian murmured. "We set a precedent," Celeste said, wonder in her voice. "Other covens will be able to help human children now. Legally. We changed the laws," Marcus added. "Actually changed them." Dorian just smiled. "We did more than that. We proved vampires and humans can work together, can trust each other. That's worth more than any law." 5 years later, Lily stood in the gymnasium of Riverside Middle School, now 12 years old and captain of the debate team. She wore a purple dress, a tradition she'd maintained every year for the annual father-daughter ball, and her hair was pulled back with the silver clip Dorian had bought her 5 years ago. The gymnasium was packed. What had started as a single school event had grown into a community tradition. Father figures of all kinds were celebrated: biological fathers, stepfathers, adoptive fathers, grandfathers, uncles, mentors. And every year, Blackthorn Coven attended. 15 vampires stood at the back of the gymnasium, dressed formally, watching as Lily approached the microphone for the closing speech. Over the years, the community had grown comfortable with their presence. Children waved to Marcus. Parents chatted with Celeste. Even Principal Foster, who'd been terrified 5 years ago, now greeted them warmly. Lily tapped the microphone, and the room fell silent. 5 years ago, I walked 4 miles in the dark to ask strangers for help, she began, her voice clear and strong. I was 7 years old. I was scared. I was being hurt by someone who was supposed to protect me, and I didn't know if anyone would care about a kid like me. She looked at Dorian, who stood with his coven, his expression soft. But someone did care. 15 vampires, creatures most people fear, showed up for a father-daughter ball they had no obligation to attend. They protected me. They saved me. They became my family. Several people in the audience were already wiping their eyes. This story had become legendary in Riverside, told and retold, but hearing it from Lily herself still carried power. People ask me all the time if I'm scared, living with vampires, if I worry about being around creatures that drink blood and live forever. Lily smiled, and I tell them, I'm not scared of the vampires. I was scared of the human who hurt me. Monsters aren't defined by what they are. They're defined by what they choose to do. She gestured to Dorian. My dad chose to protect me when he could have ignored me. He chose to break laws that had stood for centuries because helping me was more important than following rules. He chose to be my father, not because he had to, but because I needed one. Dorian felt his eyes burning, a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Around him, his coven members were similarly affected. Family isn't about blood, Lily continued, her voice thick with emotion. Family is about who shows up when you're scared and makes you feel safe. Family is about who sees you at your worst and decides to stick around anyway. Family is about choice. She stepped away from the microphone and walked across the gymnasium to Dorian. Without hesitation, she hugged him, and the room erupted in applause. Thank you, Dad, Lily whispered, too quiet for anyone but vampire ears to hear. For choosing me, for choosing us. Dorian held her carefully, aware of his strength, aware of how precious she was. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. You changed everything, Lily, not just for yourself, but for all of us. The rest of the evening passed in celebration. Fathers danced with daughters, friends mingled, and in one corner, Judge Morrison, who'd come as a guest rather than a witness, approached Dorian with a smile. You've become quite the local legend, she said, not intentionally. The best legends never are. She handed him a file. I thought you'd want to see this. Statistics from the county. Since you established the intervention protocols with the council, reports of child abuse in supernatural communities have increased by 40%. That's good? Dorian asked, uncertain. That's excellent. It means victims are coming forward because they know they'll be heard. Other vampire covens are following your example, working with human authorities. You didn't just save one child, Lord Blackthorn. You saved hundreds. After she walked away, Sebastian appeared beside Dorian. Feeling proud? Feeling old, Dorian admitted, and grateful, and terrified of what happens when Lily grows up and I stay the same age. That's years away, decades if we're lucky. Sebastian clapped him on the shoulder. For now, enjoy being her dad. You're good at it. Later that night, after the ball ended and they returned to Blackthorn Manor, Lily sat in the library with Dorian, both of them reading in comfortable silence. It had become their routine, an hour of quiet reading before bed, just the two of them. Dad, Lily said suddenly. Yes, sweetheart? When I grow up and get old and you stay young, will you still be my dad? Dorian set down his book, considering the question carefully. Always. Age doesn't change family. You'll always be my daughter, Lily. Even when you're 90 and I still look 40. Even when you're gone and I'm still here. You'll always be the little girl who was brave enough to ask a monster for help. You're not a monster. Maybe not, but I was for a long time. Cold, distant, hiding from the world. He smiled at her. Then you walked into my life and reminded me what it means to be more than just a predator surviving in the dark. You made me human again, in the ways that matter. Lily moved to sit beside him, tucking herself under his arm the way she had when she was 7. She was bigger now, growing fast, but still small enough to fit. I'm glad I picked you, she said. I'm glad you did too. Best decision a little girl ever made. They sat together in the quiet library, vampire and human, father and daughter, family by choice rather than blood. Outside, the moon rose over Blackthorn Manor, illuminating gardens where night-blooming flowers opened in the darkness. In the 5 years since Lily had walked through those doors asking for a father for one night, everything had changed. The separation laws had been revised. Vampires and humans were learning to work together. Children were being saved because monsters decided to be heroes. And at the center of it all was a 7-year-old girl who'd been brave enough to ask, and a 400-year-old vampire who'd been wise enough to say yes. Years later, when people asked Dorian about the most important moment of his immortal life, he never mentioned battles or achievements or the centuries of power he'd accumulated. He always talked about the night a little girl looked at a vampire king and asked, "Will you be my father?" And how answering yes had defied every ancient law and saved them both.